Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this video about using the context API with TypeScript. Now, what I recommend you to do is to make a code snippet from the code at the end of this video, which you can also find down in the description, so you can reuse it easily for next project, so you don't every time have to be, burdened by creating a context provider. But having said that, we're going to do it in this video anyway. So I will be using the input provider context we created in the video about the context API in the React state management series. So if you haven't watched that video yet, I recommend you to do it. And well, here you can see it. If you have watched that video already, this might look familiar to you because this is what we've created right there. All we're doing is setting an input value to the initial state, and then we have two different types of actions we can dispatch to the reducer, which is either to set the state with an input value, and we take that from the payload that's been given, or we just set the input value to 100. And as you can see, we right here have the app component that's wrapped inside that provider. And the only thing the app component is doing now is grabbing the state and the dispatch from the context and displaying the input value and providing a button where the action set input value to 100 is set. So what we're going to do in this video is kind of like rewrite the input value context so we can use it in TypeScript, because as you can see right now, we get a lot of errors and it does not work. So there's a couple of steps we have to go through in order to make this work. And the first step will be to create app state and an action type. So I will do that right up here. So that's for the state and the action that are now highlighted because they have an any type. So we want to get rid of that. So we can say right here, type app state is a type of initial state. All right, so the one we have right here. And then we also want to create an action type, which is, and this could either be a type called set input value with a payload of a number, or it could be a type with the called set input value to 100 and it doesn't have a payload. So that's our pretty much a union type we put in right here. So the next step is to create a type for the provider props. And we use the provider props right here. You see input value provider. And what we're using right here in the props is actually a children. So we could say interface input provider props. And that contains children. And children are a React.React node. The next step is then to add the app state and action types to the reducer. So the app state and the action we create up right here, we can pass it to the state like so. You say state is app state and action is of type action. Now the second step is optional. It's to remove the action destructuring we're doing right here. So if you're using a different approach to the context API, because there's different implementations of it, then you might not have to do it. But what I'm going to do, because that will make things a little easier, is actually remove this. And instead of saying type, I will say now action.type, and I will do the same for the payload. So that makes it a bit easier. Next step is to set the app state and action types to create context. So what I will do right here, I will say that create context has state, which is the app state, and it has dispatch, which is of the type react.dispatch, and it dispatches an action, right? So that's the one we created up right here. And then instead of saying initial state, we are going to pass state. And we want to say that it starts off with the initial state. And then we have our dispatch, which is simply a function that returns like so. And now the last step is to assign the provider props to the provider. So the one we created right here, the input provider props, we can now use it right here. So you can actually destructure those props and say we want to take the children of it, and that should be of type input provider props. And now of course we can remove props to children and change that just into children. Now you'll see whenever I save it, we will not have errors anymore. I will refresh the app. There we go. So now you'll see our app. Oops. Our app component now has the value with the initial value is set to 0. And now whenever I click the button, an action is dispatched to the reducer and the input value is set to 100. So as you can see, we had to add quite a lot of stuff. So what I recommend you to do is to just make a code snippet of this, so you can easily reuse this in other applications. If you don't know how to do this, I recommend you to check the video I mentioned before, like the JavaScript way of using the context API, which you can find in the React State Management series. And that video is just called Context API as well. So having that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.